Yeah. Oh, so many hands. Okay, Lisa. Please.
So we understand logic of being on the, where the pipeline meets the, is you say transmission grid?
So there's a transmission line there as well as a pipeline.
Okay.
So I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. It's the yeah.
Like it used to come from Table Island, but now it comes from the States, and then there's some gas that gets generated from.
And
From a few sources.
The people.
Oh, sorry. I can repeat the question. Okay. Well,
it wasn't a specification,
mhm.
but I'm curious as to how much cheaper, because you mentioned it's 32 million to connect these two anyway.
Mhm.
How much cheaper is this location for this particular factor than Scoop?
That's a good question. Scoop already has an industrial park. So,
What's the question?
oh, sorry. The question is, sorry, I'm so sorry. The question was that the switchyard asset will cost at least 32 million to build to connect rigs to the transmission line that's already there in Tantramar. And the question was that how much cheaper would it be if it wasn't Skaduk? I don't know how much cheaper it would be. I'm not familiar with how Skaduk's Industrial Park is set up, if they already have a switchyard asset or not. That could be worth looking into if they already have that built. But if not, they would need to build one to connect to the grid. So apologies, I don't know.
That's okay.
Right.
What do you think? Cheaper?
Right. Great question. Yeah.
So, sorry.
That's okay. I'll remember this time. Yeah.
When NB Power decided kind of behind the scenes that they were going to put out for bids for increasing our megawatt assets, they probably didn't put out for batteries as well, right? So they're saying that they just like, okay, well, Riggs was the best bidder. The Pro Energy was the best bidder. Can we invite a battery producing company from one of these other production sites in Ontario or Quebec to come and present to NB Power and offer them a cheaper option, which also may supply them with revenue?
Gotcha. So the question was that NB Power's request for proposal RFP was only for gas turbine facilities that would fit the specific need. And did NB Power also do an RFP for batteries to compete against this? I would say no, they didn't do that. And I think the way the RFP system, the way they're doing it is flawed from the beginning, where instead of asking for a specific gas plant to be built and requesting companies to build that gas plant, you should be requesting that this is the problem we have. Who can solve this problem? Yeah. So our problem is that we have a lack on supply side, whether it's batteries, whether it's gas, wind, whatever. Let the best proposal win. But we want to see other proposals. We want to see other ideas. If you only submit an RFP for gas, you're only going to get gas. So I do know that NB Power, they also did, I mean, they're doing a lot of RFPs, but some are wind and some are smaller scale battery, but nothing. This plant specifically was an RFP for a gas plant. I don't recall any RFP for batteries.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, your hand was first.
It was in August. This person, I believe he was from NB Power, was asked the question about battery alternatives, and he indicated that they didn't have the capacity to provide energy for long enough to fill the anticipated gaps to fill those valleys that they're anticipated in renewable production and bring it down on some of the time. And so your presentation sounded like you thought the batteries could bridge those gaps and why they might be giving an answer.
Well,
Question.
sorry, so the question was, that when someone from NB Power came in August, and someone brought up the same question of why not use batteries instead, they were told by the representative from NB Power that batteries could not hold or could not last as long as as required. Typically, batteries are between 1 to 4 hours of storage. There are now pushing technologies between 6 to 8 hours. And I guess it also depends on what the total demand is, right? So if our peak demand is 3,800 megawatts, or I guess that's what NB Power currently has, let's say 4,000 megawatts, and if we're building 1,700 megawatts of wind, and we're expecting that to be a significant portion, and there's no wind, right? How do we account for that? It's a good question. I need to do some math, but I believe that since it is modular in the sense that you could have multiple batteries, you use one at a time, going through battery after battery after battery. Maybe 1 4-hour battery might not work, but a second or third can probably get to where we need. So I think that if we had an RFP, for example, that could from an actual battery company that could clarify those numbers, that would be better than me. But I believe there's a way. NB Power says there isn't. I think we need a third party to mediate.
Can I just?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think Oh. Oh, I see. Okay. The case, to repeat, is that the comparison was between 4-hour battery storage versus 4 days of no wind generation, and if batteries could back that up. So I don't have a number for you or answer to that yet, but Bev, did you have?
Thinking,
Hmm.
do they know something that NB Power doesn't know? Probably.
Possibly.
Ontario just built that wonderful battery plant under budget. St. John Power. So I'm just not buying that argument too much. Like, if other places are doing it, why is it that New Brunswick couldn't possibly do it? Like, New Brunswick is so unique that it's so different in every place else.
Well, the battery doesn't connect to the pipeline, Bev. So I think we might.
So I've got some questions later, but I just want to reflect, like this discussion and when you were talking today, so I drive an electric vehicle. And it's like the same argument, exactly the same argument that people says, I'm just not comfortable buying an EV. You know why? It's like, I'm a little bit worried about the range and how long the battery's gonna last. And what if I go on a trip and it's gonna take me, oh my God, will take me 30 minutes to charge the battery? And because it's the same argument, right? And so, and many of you people in this room go through this kind of thing about your decision making about when you buy a car, why you don't buy an electric vehicle. You buy a plug-in hybrid or something. So I'm just like bringing it down to earth. Like we're going through the same decisions on a personal level. So, and you have to make decisions like NB Power's making. Yeah.
So many hands. You.
Actually, and a question, and they're connected. I think I was there for when they mentioned 4 days.
I'm sorry to know that. It would be super efficient if people went out to the guys.
On the stage, don't you? Yeah, essentially my question just was, I was there when they mentioned 4 days, because I recall the question about battery energy storage. And I guess my sort of overarching wonder with this is how did we get to the point where supposedly a peaker plant's going to need to run for 4 days continuously, often enough that that's a design factor? So I guess I'm just curious, like,
Mhm.
do you have any sense of how New Brunswick Power got to the point where they're so behind on capacity, or where existing assets were just either like where there's so much built up deferred maintenance and so much extra capacity, and like so much like missing capacity that we have to rush like this?
That's a good question. One thing is that there are certain reliability standards that that the I forget what it's the North NPCC. I forget exactly what it stands for, but they're kind of decide the reliability for the whole region. And I forget what the exact reliability metrics they use, but I think NB Power is a bit worried that what happened on February 4th, 2023 was going to happen again. What happened was it was the highest peak demand they ever had, and it was the same demand from Quebec, and Quebec stopped exporting to New Brunswick. So we lost all that electricity coming in, and NB Power was kind of left in the cold and leading to brownouts. So I think NB Power might be considering, what if Hydro-Quebec turns us off again? Do we have something to back us up? But I also think, like, to combine your point, Doug, with your point, sorry, I don't know your name.
Nate.
To combine both your points, Nate and Doug, is that we do have a fundamental distrust in NB Power, and it kind of goes with how they communicate. And I think a lot of these issues we're having, it can be improved with communication. So, for example, on the peak load day on February 4th, 2023, the very next day, the headline was that NB Power says that wind didn't show up and we all lost our power because wind wasn't there. As if we have enough wind to supply all of New Brunswick to begin with, right? But they conveniently didn't mention that Hydro-Quebec stopped exporting to us.
Was Wipro actually working?
Was LaPro actually working? Who knows? Probably not. But instead, let's think of a world where instead of NB Power instantly blaming wind for not showing up, even though we don't have enough wind to begin with, how about the day before a storm? We get an email from NB Power that says a big storm is coming. We don't have enough supply for everyone to ramp up. Would you please consider turning down your thermostat by 1 degree? If you turn your thermostat down by 1 degree, it'll shave off this much, and we might be able to keep your lights on.
That everybody, hey, we're facing a crisis right now. Can you?
There's a storm coming. Hydro-Quebec.
Do you really need to do a load of laundry? Like,
And it kind of what you're all saying, that when you're buying your EV, right? Those arguments about can I find a charger or something like that, but you adapt to it, right? That we've come to this point where we expect everything all the time, and it's not working. It's leading to things being so expensive for no reason. And instead of maybe adding $1.4 billion onto the grid, maybe we say, take one less shower today because we don't have the power for it. Turn your thermostat down by 1 degree. Consider helping us out, and we'll help you out. Right? We need this communication back, and we don't have it. We're all playing the blame game, and at a certain point, like the buck needs to stop, and we need to start living within our means.
I can,
Sure.
I have a question online if I can. Not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I was just thinking about what you were talking about earlier with regard to the renewables being the sole source of charging up these batteries, and I'm just thinking that doesn't really stand up in terms of wouldn't it if we have our nuclear facility in operation that's handling the base load, and we have all these other sources such as hydro and other sources of that sort, would it not stand to reason that that these sources will have excess at different parts of the day, and those power sources would also be charging other batteries, and we're not solely dependent upon wind and solar to be charging up our battery systems. I mean, is there logic there, or I mean, do these power
Absolutely.
sources have excess power at certain times of the day?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, any of these technologies can fill up the battery. So even Mac to Quack, I mean, Mac to Quack is essentially being used as a battery as it is, and it could certainly one battery can fill up the other. And I think with some of these other technologies, I can't say for LaPro and how much it's being used for baseload for the entire province, but if it was generating excess, it certainly could also fill up the battery. So it's a good point. It doesn't have to be just wind and solar filling it up. It could be any technology. Yes. Oh, sorry.
So if the plan was for 1,400 megawatts of new wind by 2035, is that mapped out and how real is that? And is it actually going to happen by 2035?
Good question. It is mapped out in the energy strategy. And they give targets like it's close to about 300 megawatts every 3 years or so. Some say 1,700 megawatts, some say 1,400, but I guess that's the Irving wind farm that's going up, the 300 difference. So we don't know if that'll be used for residential, but likely not. I believe it is mapped out, and there's already close to $1 billion investment from the federal government into these new wind projects. Many of them will be in Indigenous collaborations. So investment is already there and commitment is already there. But I am uncertain at the moment if the RFPs have gone out, if they're already procuring this. But the plan and intention is yes, that 1,400 megawatts will go up. That is the plan. Mm-hmm. 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 Damn. Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's whoever comes up to the mic.
Right first. Production of energy in one large plant and then transmitted uses a lot of energy, wasted energy through the transmission. What about more local, more distributed energy production?
Great question. We refer to that as decentralized energy, and it is something that we are pushing for as well. This model of, economies of scale, having these huge megawatt fossil reactors, nuclear reactors, I think is a thing of the past. I mean, look how excited our politicians are over nuclear being modular when wind and solar have been modular since the beginning of time, right? So I think seeing a world where we have more decentralized energy, possibly more community-owned energy projects that people can buy into the system, and I think that would be a far better system and far more reliable, because if your 10 megawatt solar array in your community goes down, that's a lot cheaper to replace that imported energy you're going to need compared to a 660 megawatt LaPro going down, right? So if you have smaller pieces of infrastructure all over that can supply locally, but something goes wrong on a certain day in one region, it's easy to fix small mistakes. It's hard to fix a big mistake. And really, when you think about NB Power's debt, it's not necessarily about the capital costs of these projects, even though these are big numbers. The most of our debt is coming from the unplanned outages or when things go wrong. And when a giant reactor goes offline, not only do you have to pay to fix it, you have to pay for all that electricity you need to import at a premium. And it's extremely expensive. So I do think that decentralized is the best way to go. And I think that's where many places are headed. It's just New Brunswick is lagging behind on that. And I don't know if the current way our Electricity Act and NB Power is structured, it kind of works against a decentralized model. And I believe that's kind of leading to our cost of living crisis that we're having. Yes, you're gonna have to come up. I'm sorry. I don't have a.
Well, please forgive the possible naivete of this question, but we were told that this mega project would only be running 7% of the time. It would be just for peak demand.
Correct.
And for most of us, it doesn't make any sense that you'd have the huge expense to have it sitting there. And you spoke about NB Power's communication difficulties with the people of New Brunswick. That alone makes us very, very skeptical of this project. Something like this would be built for 7% of the time. That will it perhaps lead to, let's not bother with renewables. We've got this thing here now. It may be a naive question, but it's really, I think, what a lot of people have said to me.
Well, I think it's not a naive question. It is a fair question to ask, and especially something that I've heard from some of our members and people in the community is, what if we have this new gas plant and it's already burning fracked gas from the US? What's to say that we don't lift the moratorium here and start fracking here again,
Yeah,
right?
that's a fear.
I agree that we're setting a precedent, which once again locks us in to fossil fuels as our primary source. And I don't think that's the best direction to go, especially when we talk about, energy security and affordability, right? We have cheaper technologies that are there that could help alleviate a lot of this demand. As for the 7%, which you're mentioning here, it is going to be a peaker plant, and by definition, a peaker plant is not going to be online. I guess the concern is that without retiring other fossil fuel assets, we're just adding another one. And if they're all burning, then are we really accomplishing anything? And I think not.
And causing a tremendous environmental disaster in this area. How do we get New Brunswickers outraged?
I don't know. I think people are so squeezed at the moment that it's hard to do outrage when people are struggling. And I think we're making choices that are going to ensure that people keep struggling. And I think that's the problem that we have, is that we're committing to the struggle by doubling down on old technologies. We're committing to the struggle by, not mapping out a plan that's for New Brunswick. You look at the energy strategy, a significant portion of it is, what if we make hydrogen for Europeans, right? What if, instead of how do we lower rates here in New Brunswick? NB Power is there day after day talking about affordability is a number one concern, but their top headlining project is an SMR that we still don't know the price of, right? We're actively choosing things. I feel things that are against our principles here. And I think that's what's leading to this problem. And I think people aren't outraged because they're squeezed. They're squeezed so hard that I don't think they have time to outrage, which is, I think, a problem in itself.
Okay, Lisa.
Or I could just ask you. No, that's all right. I'll ask you.
Speaking of the rate increase of the already squeezed New Brunswickers in relation to this.
That's I cannot. Oh, sorry. What is the potential? That's why you stayed up here. Okay.
Rate increase.
If this plant goes up, I cannot give you a number for that now. That will be up to the EUB at the next rate application. NB Power, I'd assume in either the 2027 or 2028 rate application will probably add some of these costs to the rate. Since it's fixed payments over 25 years, theoretically, there's some predictability, except for fuel prices. We don't know that. That might be in the variance charge later, but there certainly will be a rate increase. I can't say to how much. It's just, I think, I showed that slide at the beginning that, you know, over the last few years, it's close to a 30% increase in rates already. And we're just seeing no sign of relief. And another plant like this, we're worried that it might lead to more rate increase, but I can't tell you exactly how much. Sorry.
But you could say fuel prices that change all the time and usually increase. Tariffs and the fixed rate of paying for power when using it, yeah?
Right. To repeat it,
Good question.
that it would likely be more expensive than a battery since you have to pay for the fuel, pay for the operation, and sorry, I forgot the third part. Oh, and the tariffs. Oh, yeah, of course. Who could forget about that?
Over the lifetime, though, right? They
Yeah.
argue that their capital cost is low.
Yeah, their argument is capital cost is lower, but the lifetime cost is certainly not lower. Yeah, exactly. We'll let the millennials pay for it. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Interested in your points that you made about how an energy company gets people to reduce the amount of electricity they use. And this is done in many jurisdictions. You hear about California doing it. Does NB Power do it at all? And they're basing, it seems to me, like from what I've heard, that they're basing wanting to build this because they ran out of power
Mhm.
on one day and they might have another day and Quebec shut them off. How much power can we save by doing that? And how much money can we save? It seems like such a cheap and getting the public involved solution that isn't being tapped into.
It's a great question. The NB Power has started exploring time of day use with their Shediac project, I believe. So in Shediac, they installed a solar array on one of the community centers, and that's linked up to all the homes, and each home is has its own battery pack. And I believe they tested time of day use in Shediac. I don't know how well it was received, but it is certainly a topic that's coming up over and over again. I hope that with the implementation of smart meters, that this is a system that we can start going into, but these behavioral changes and this kind of communication between ratepayers and NB Power, if we can somehow improve that or fix that in a way where we're kind of working together to reduce demand so we don't exceed our peak. I think it certainly is possible. And I haven't finished reading this new report that was uploaded to the EUB on some of these demand side savings that can happen. But some of the numbers I've seen are quite staggering. Just delaying when some of these water heaters are turned on can save a ton of power, especially during peak. So I think even though we're growing our load forecast, the NB Power saying by 0.4% per year, I think that we don't exactly need to build more if we can reduce our demand by a similar amount just through either peak pricing or time of day use or any of the other options that can help with that. You're close to the mic. How about you?
Okay, if you don't mind, I've got a couple questions.
Oh,
I do have testimony to start. So this thing about hot water heaters, my first house I ever bought was in 1988. And I put a mechanical timer on the hot water heater. Been doing that for 30, 40 years. And my power bill dropped, and it only comes, my hot water heater at my house only comes on 4 hours a day. And I've got it set up to twice, been doing that for decades. And my power bill, when I first put it in, dropped by a third. And that was in the 80s. So anyways, it works.
it works.
So first question I had was, so NB Power keeps talking about, we need the power in 2028, and this thing, we can get this running by 2028. So they're in this hurry up and rush mode. So I guess my question is, do they have any engineering staff there who are 21st century engineering staff, or do they just go, we have to go with what we're familiar with, and that's a gas turbine or whatever? So that's a bit of a rhetorical
I
question.
won't comment on that side. I trust NB Power
Okay.
has the staff for that, but
Okay,
I would like to question, do we really need this by 2028?
there you go.
Right? And I think that's a valid question because the main argument for this plant is to back up all the new renewables we're going to have online. But these new renewables are not going to be online by 2028 either, right?
Right.
So I do think we're rushing it. And I don't see the argument for rushing it so fast and why it can't be built in conjunction with some of these
Okay.
renewable energy projects. So I think rushing it is not the right choice.
So the next one is a location question. So I get the argument, I guess, of gas pipeline and transmission line, right?
Mhm.
So, but if you think about transmission lines, why couldn't you put, you know, if it's going to be gas turbine or anything else, why can't you put it on where Colson Cove is or some other place? Because they already have transmission lines. And then your only problem is, but they've already got gas going to St. John
Mhm.
because they already made sure of that. So there's other places in the province, I think, that already have existing was a development, so it's already industrial landscape. You can put
Mhm.
these things in. So,
I think that's a great question for NB Power.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah,
if-
anyways, okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes, yeah.
We want it in south.
Congestion, okay.
They want it
Hmm.
in south. They different direction. Transmission, congestion.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's already generating too much for the transmission.
Okay,
thank you.
right. So okay, so maybe this one, don't think you can answer this one anyways, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Maybe
So-
someone can.
So, demand forecasts,
Mhm.
we see in the news 2 days ago or whatever about AI server farms being proposed. Like, are we supposed to pay for the power for these guys to do that?
Good
Well,
question.
Is it-
The turbine stakes there.
Exactly. Anyways,
I think-
rhetorical question, you don't need to answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I will say, I believe there's a moratorium on data centers at the moment, but I think
Yeah.
instead of answering that question, how about I take it a step back
Okay.
and talk about how a lot of the industrial users in New Brunswick want to get off the grid and supply themselves. Right? And this is a concern in the sense that if a lot of the large industrial users start leaving the grid, then it's up to us as the ratepayers to supply that back side, right? So for example, like JDI building 300 megawatt wind farm, right? The Electricity Act was already changed to allow big users to supply themselves. But now the question is, with JDI building a 300 megawatt wind farm, how do they supply all of their paper mills, right? They're going to have to use NB Power's transmission lines. So there's discussion about, do we update the Electricity Act again to allow for that? And I think we're living in this weird, like dystopian future where we have NB Power's rates are so high and they're doubling down on fossil fuel, they're doubling down on nuclear, they're doubling down on biomass, some of the most expensive technologies that we have to pay for. And then the large industrial users are getting off the grid and using wind to supply themselves. And I don't understand where this is going, right? So how do we kind of take back our system,
Yeah.
right? This is a public utility. They define themselves as a nuclear utility, but it is a public utility. And we need to somehow talk about how do we get to a decentralized system that's a bit more affordable? How do we get to getting people to care about their energy system and opening that communication back between ratepayers and NB Power, right? I think there's so many ways to modernize this system and yeah, sorry, I guess
No, that's great.
now that we have industrial users leaving the grid and we have to pick up that slack, like maybe we need to get outraged and say that we want to pick up the slack in our own way. That's through demand reduction, through renewables. Yes, come back up.
Is that the mic we're using?
Yeah, this is the mic. This is just visual aid.
Yeah, okay. outrage can definitely be a tool in this, but I also feel like there are so many things that we can be outraged about at any given time, including but not limited to how incompetent NB Power seems to be at any given time. But I'm just curious, like, is there an optimism angle on this? Like, are there ways that you've seen or other people here have seen that work to get people excited about the possibility of a better future where, I don't know, we own the power plant in our backyard, or where, people feel like they're participating in something bigger and actually can do things. Maybe it's just a big pipe dream that people can actually trust institutions. But it's like, how do we get people to actually like trust each other and work together on a larger public sense about this?
I am a stubborn optimist, and I believe that there is a way to get us back on the right track. I would like to believe that this NB Power comprehensive review, the reviewers are going to, I'm on the advisory committee and chatting with them once in a while. And the intention is that they're looking at the structure of NB Power, where this debt's coming from. And in March 2026, they're going to have this report that they're going to give to the province about suggestions that they're going to ask for change. And from the Conservation Council side, we're working on a report to modernize and update the Electricity Act. We want to update and modernize the Energy and Utility Board Act. Really, our policy framework at the moment is quite weak and has been written by industry. It is not written by the people. And I think we need to kind of demand for this reform in March and say that it's very clear the system isn't working. Not only the structure, but just how our decision-making process is inherently flawed. And we'd like to take our system back and get our Crown Corporation working for the public again. I think I believe that there's hope. And I think we can definitely see the change. And I guess if I may add a second part to this, is that I do see a lot of hope through many of these Indigenous collaborations, where we're now starting to see some big bucks going into these Indigenous collaborations to build these wind farms. I recently visited the Wiskalumsun wind farm in the south, and just seeing a community who might not think about energy now actively participating because they have a wind farm, and they're seeing the benefits of that directly. And I think we need to start learning from this Indigenous model, right? That can we replicate this as a community model? Can we replicate some of the successes we're seeing from them making smaller power stations for these communities, that maybe we can move towards microgrids, and instead of generating everything on the south and shipping it all north, that we can build a few wind farms up there and help them out. So I think I believe that we can make a better system, and I'm an optimist about it, even though you might not see it right now. And but I think there's hope. That's true. That's true. I'd quit today if I didn't believe. But I believe. Yeah, I'm here willingly off hours on Thursday to talk to you about this.
I want to add exactly to that and say that this community's already got some of those things in place.
Perfect.
We have EOS Eco Energy. We have Beaujeu Renewable Energy Cooperative. Both of those agencies and others have things that they're thinking about to do exactly that stuff. But we've got to mobilize the anger over towards optimism. And that's what needs to be done. Exactly. Get people buying cars. That you got to just make the next step. Don't keep putting blocks in your way. Go ahead. And we've got some of those things in place.
Thank you for that. Glad to hear it. Woo, optimism.
You can mention solar.
Oh, that's a good question. Solar is a part of our electricity reform push in March. There's definitely, actually Bev brought this up to me the other day, where Nova Scotia has quite a bit of solar compared to New Brunswick. New Brunswick, you have a few residential users who have installed it. And are you happy with your system?
Absolutely.
There you go. Right. And I think we may not have the best framework to allow for more solar. It's something I'm currently investigating, but I don't fully understand why we don't have more solar, especially when Nova Scotia has quite a decent amount. And there's this weird myth that there's no sun on the East Coast. I moved here 3 years ago. Sun is still here, right? Yeah, climate change. There you go. when does winter start? It's who knows. Okay. But I think there's tremendous solar potential, especially when we think about roofs and we think about how we can, instead of building a 400 megawatt rigs plant, maybe a few solars to start dealing with that on top of roofs. So.
No, 10.5 kilowatts.
That's a big house. If that's 10 megawatt. Nice. Do you generate credits from
Yes.
that? You, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
But yeah, I'm ahead right now by almost 4,000 kilowatts
May
going into the winter.
may I ask, in the winter, are you still do you use more than you produce still? Or no, you probably use more than
Yes, yeah,
you really?
no, I use more than what. I
Oh,
produce.
gotcha. But the
Yeah,
credits
yeah,
can make up for it.
yeah,
Okay, that's great.
Accumulated.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That'll get applied to my bill.
Wow.
But,
Nice.
just to preface or go off of I was in Fredericton back in, February. And the community of Mahone Bay
Mhm.
has a community solar project. And they
Mm.
have a community utility that they have. So I think we need to advocate, NB Power to allow people to build these large scale projects because municipalities can tap into grants and stuff like that. And incentivizing homeowners to put in solar, with when you're generating the power and selling it to the grid, that you're getting more than what you're paying for, because right now it's a 1-for-1,
Mhm.
but I still have to pay the HST plus the variance.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
you-
on March, on March
Oh.
31st, if you haven't used whatever, you're SOL. In Nova Scotia, they'll write you a check.
You just crank up your heat. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do
Yeah.
that. We're looking into it now. So I don't have these answers, but it's definitely a question that we've asked ourselves and trying to figure out a solution for it. And if there's a way in our legislative landscape that would allow for that, we're going to push for it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's correct. NB Power is the.
Yeah. And advocating the Canadian electrical, the CSA, to approve dual the way charters.
Oh yeah, dual.
So
Okay.
at Tesla, that you can plug your car, and if you need power, you pull it from the car.
Please email me these recommendations. I'd love to add it to our report, and we can add for that. Change.
I'm really interested in Wallbox thing because they have a partnership with Kia, so I have a Kia vehicle, and Tesla just announced theirs. But because of the framework in Canada, they won't allow it.
I didn't-
So I think, yeah.
I think we have a question.
Yes,
Yes,
please,
sir.
please. Come on.
I know, like, we very briefly mentioned hydrogen power.
Mhm.
That's something that I hear a lot when people talk about renewables. I just wanted to know, like, the feasibility is for something like that to be implemented here. I know, like, batteries are obviously much better than fossil fuels, but they can still have their drawbacks when it comes to, like, resource extraction, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to know.
Absolutely. So the question is about hydrogen and how feasible it is. The first thing about hydrogen is that there are two uses of hydrogen. Either hydrogen as a chemical. So what I mean by that is you're making steel. You're making some kind of product from that hydrogen. The other use is as an energy carrier. It is not an energy source. It is an energy carrier. And so in terms of the feasibility, I would say at this moment, it is not feasible in the sense that we have electric cars, we don't have hydrogen cars. And the reason why we don't have hydrogen cars is because they are 1/3 the efficiency of an electric car. Because you have to, well, and also the other issue is that hydrogen right now, about 99.9% of it is currently made through fossil fuels. So it is a byproduct of of the fossil fuel industry. So when it comes to using it as an energy carrier, so it's theoretically a good idea in the sense that if you burn hydrogen, all you get is water out, right? There's no carbon into the system, but practically hydrogen is a gas. And so the easiest fuel, like for example, coal, it's a solid, you can pick it up, easy to transport it, easy to use. Liquid is a bit harder to use, and gas is a lot harder to use. So getting in such a molecule, you have to compress it quite a bit to get it to fit into whatever container you're trying to do. And there's hydrogen is such a small molecule that there's always leakage. It's always going to leak, and it's a bit of the problem that the hydrogen industry was facing. And there was a report that really showed the math in terms of how much loss is at each step when forming hydrogen. And one of the parts that scares me with the push towards hydrogen, for example, is that there's lots of projects on the East Coast, especially in Newfoundland, being proposed, a major offshore wind to produce hydrogen for Europe. And if you think of the feasibility of that, well, are you transporting the gas across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe? Maybe not the gas, maybe you convert it to ammonia instead and convert it across. But then you have losses you're turning that electricity into hydrogen, which is already a loss, and then hydrogen into ammonia, which is another loss, ship it across and then convert it back. So it's just, there's so many more steps than just using the electricity directly. If you can't use electricity directly, then I see a use for hydrogen, right? Where you can actually move it and use it as you wish. But just those proposals that are pushing for green hydrogen, just that green electricity is so much cheaper and more readily available to use than converting it to hydrogen. I just think that's an expensive step that you're taking. So I don't think if you really, really need a fuel, then I can see some use. But if you can't electrify it, I would say electrification is always better than using hydrogen.
Not using it, using
it. You could use hydrogen as a backup, but once again, there is where do you store it, and it will leak with time. So it's just a matter of if that's feasible or not. But it can be used as a storage chemical as well. It is an energy carrier, but practically and commercially, it's not really the best option, I would say. But theoretically, it is. It can be done. Go for it. Mhm.
Is that, do you like, what's your opinion? Is that like figuring in? And
So the question was, with some of these big expenses coming in, like Mactaquack's refurbishment, the loss of power, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean, Beldoon is being converted from a coal plant to a biomass plant, and that will lose some power as well. It will go. So there's a lot of changes happening, which I guess is leading into this fear that we need to build something before 2028. I think your question specifically is how do we deal with the losses during that refurbishment? Is that your question, or? I don't. I'm not in any. They got to bring in pinch. And it might just be that we need something online while something goes offline. OPG is Ontario Power Generation, and they're the ones that run all the nuclear facilities.
If they're not working for the province may be able to do things. I guess what I'm getting at is like in other provinces, for example, the REM transit project in Montreal is actually owned by the Quebec pension plan. So it's succeeding actually benefits Quebecers pensions. Like you have money tied up in QPP. And they own and operate the project. It has to be profitable, otherwise the people of Quebec are gonna start getting real mad. I guess my question is like, are there ownership options for either the plant, for New Brunswick Power, or assets like that, where because right now it feels like, or from my impression is that New Brunswick Power sort of is its own entity. If it benefits, it benefits. If it does bad, I mean, obviously we do badly, we pay for power. But like, is there a way in which maybe investing the money that will be necessary to fix New Brunswick Power could be more focused on leading to them developing equity and to us maybe owning more of our grid?
So I'm trying to think of how to rephrase that for the people online. The question is that, are there ways that we can own our grid and kind of reclaim some of this this debt back? I can't say I can directly answer that question, but I can give you a somewhat indirect answer where now talking with the review committee at NB Power, one fundamental flaw that I'm seeing is that if you look at the Electricity Act, NB Power's mandate is defined quite clearly, and NB Power's operations are very broad. And I think we need to get NB Power back to focusing on its mandate and only its mandate. So for example, NB Power, for some reason, NB Power, their role and their mandate defined by the Electricity Act is to supply electricity to all of New Brunswick's in a affordable, reliable way, is fundamentally what it says, right? But they have so many projects that are way outside of this mandate and scope. For example, NB Power, right now they have so many projects focused on economic development. NB Power's role is not economic development. NB Power is also running the Save Energy NB program. To me, that's an inherent conflict of interest. You can't have someone who's responsible for the supply side also be responsible for the reduction side, right? Save Energy NB used to be a government program, but now it's NB Power's program, and it falls outside of their mandate, and they're spending quite a bit of resources on that. Is that a problem? Probably, right? So I think I see where you're getting at, and I think I don't know if there's a way for us to own into that system, but I do believe there's a way we can get NB Power profitable again. But I think we need to return back to NB Power's mandate. Like it shouldn't be an SMR pusher because it's an economic development, right? It should be supplying New Brunswickers for the cheapest, most reliable electricity it can, right? We shouldn't have Lori Clark, who's the CEO of NB Power and the chief nuclear officer, right? She should be focused as CEO, right? We need to I think we need to kind of trim these other activities that are going on, which might be leading to issues and planning out what NB Power really needs to do. So I know I didn't directly answer it, but I think before we get there, we need to really define what are we trying to do here. And what if we're trying to do is not aligned, then I think we're never going to get to that point where we're reclaiming our debt and getting back to ownership. I hope that answers as best as I can. Yes. What time is that? Okay.
Yeah, we're getting close. So just, I don't know if this is the final question, but it's close to.
That's all right.
And I thought if you would, this has been very helpful and we've covered all sorts of territory, but sort of as parting comments,
Mhm.
could you, we're here as a collective community because we have concerns about what's being proposed on all sorts of different levels for all sorts of different reasons. We've talked a lot about the technology. And do you have any advice for us as a community on what kind of questions that we should be asking that might give the government of New Brunswick and or NB Power pause to cover things more closely related to our discussion tonight, the power stuff?
Okay.
Because I think you were suggesting that there's other ways of going about this, but how do one sort of get them to, what's that?
Yeah, we have
Okay.
a fact sheet about the
Okay.
text from our fact sheet. If you're against this plant, we have a sign-on letter, but I guess, I'm having trouble thinking of specific questions you can ask NB Power, but I guess
What's your take?
my take-home message is that, we all see that the system is broken. And we need to find a way to get it back to what our values and principles are. And how I see that happening is that the very easy and simple way of emailing your MLA and constantly reaching out. I know it sounds cliche, but the more people that well, what I've heard from a lot of these MLAs recently, and even the MPs when I was in Ottawa, is that people aren't really talking about these issues anymore, or climate anymore, or how we generate energy anymore. Everyone's talking about affordability. They can't make ends meet, and we're finding Band-Aid solutions to all of that. We need to try to bring the conversation back to we have this fundamental problem here, and we need a long-term solution to it. And we need to, constantly bang on our MLA's doors and say that the system isn't working, and what we're currently is being proposed isn't going to work either, right? How do we use this comprehensive review to say that, hey, we've outlined nothing but problems, and the solutions proposed are all Band-Aid, right? How do we get to something that's a bit more long-term? And for me, whenever I think of long-term like solutions, I lean towards the policy. Our policy framework is quite weak at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And if we can change the Electricity Act to from NB Power has to buy the cheapest source of electricity first, and we changed it that NB Power has to buy SMR electricity first, then I think we can change the act to allow for us to retake our system and get back to affordability, get back to some of the, at least guide the principles to go for projects that we're interested in, that we want to contribute to. So I think we really need to ask for reform of our legislative landscape. It's so weak right now, and especially when you have these large industrial emitters who are there every single day saying that we don't want to pay NB Power's rates, we want to get off the grid and supply ourselves. It's leaving all of us to pick up that slack. And if we got to pick up the slack, then that gives us more power to demand for change and ask for something. So I think we really need to push for electricity reform in New Brunswick. And I think the more people asking for that, the more constantly you ask for that. Even if you get an email saying like a out of office reply or whatever, keep emailing them. And with time, just like water, you will break them down, and we will start to get the reform that we need. So that's what I do, right? So when the energy strategy was being written up, initially there was very little wind in the strategy, and I would bother Minister Holland almost every week to say that, why not? Let's talk about it. Let's argue about it. Let's what are your actual concerns about this? And eventually we started getting more wind onto there. So it's not just me, but several other people were pushing for it as well. And I think just politicians, they're within their own echo chambers as well. And if we can start piercing into those echo chambers, sharing some of our ideas, they're gonna start following along. So I think they really reflect what they hear. And if all they hear is industry chirping in their ear, then they're not hearing you. So you need to show up, and I think we all need to show up.
To be clear, provincial, not municipal.
Sorry, apologies, provincial, not municipal councillor, sorry.
Thank you so much.
Don't bother. Thank you.